The next topic is foreign trade zones, which has been a pretty heavy topic of discussion these past few months. And with us is Gary Goldfarb from Interport. He's the Chief Strategy Officer of Interport Group of Companies, leading supply chain management group, providing free trade zone, customs bonded warehousing and such for and also with duty drawback things. Goldfarb helped bring the Miami Free Trade Zone to its glory days, with over 96% occupancy, reaching almost $1 billion in trade in 2006. And believe it or not, he's an inductee into the FCBF Hall of Fame. That's the Florida Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association. So we have a Hall of Famer here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gary Goldfarb.
Good morning. Still morning. No presentation, just me, and I'm going to kind of walk around and tell you what we've done. I think it's very important. David, thank you very much for your segue and taxes, because foreign trade is one way to help you avoid taxes. And my background is about 45 years in the logistics industry, understanding foreign trade zones here and in Europe, and building products here and in Europe with foreign trade zone benefits. So avoiding taxes, avoiding duties, avoiding regulations has always been part of what we've done. This community, the regulations for foreign trade zones changed in 2014 and made it very easy for communities such as Fort Lauderdale to become foreign trade zones from county line to county line. Broward, City of Fort Lauderdale went out and applied for a license from the county line all the way to Pompano and began trying to promote foreign trade zones, and folks didn't understand what it was all about. So we got together with Jay Reynolds, who's sitting back here, the City of Fort Lauderdale, and the Marine Industry Association of South Florida in trying to develop foreign trade zone marinas. When we went to the Foreign Trade Zone Board, they thought we were nuts, truly thought we were nuts. And we explained it to them, and they said, well, maybe. We went to U.S. Customs, and they looked at us. Again, they wanted us to examine us psychologically. And then they acceded. They said, you know, this may be the right thing to do. It has taken us about a year and a half. Now we have some activated foreign trade zone marinas. We have activated foreign trade zone boatyards that do refit, and soon to have more. And we now have even National Marine, which is a distributor of marine products, activated as a foreign trade zone. But what does all that mean to you, especially to this group? Foreign trade zones are deemed to be outside of the commerce of the United States. So if you look at it in a geographical way, we're Switzerland. We don't, or Hong Kong for that matter. There's less regulations, no taxes, no duties. While you're on the foreign trade zone, you pretty much can do whatever you want to do, so long as it's not illegal with a criminal intent or harmful to humans. So what can we do? We started peeling the onion with customs as to what kind of things we can do. We can bring in new built boats, sit them in the foreign trade zone forever. They don't ever have to move out. They don't pay duties. They don't pay taxes. They're just sitting there waiting for their future to be determined. We can have refit done in a foreign trade zone. We're in the process now of applying for a license for the first refit to be done with foreign materials in a foreign trade zone and come out with a yacht. The difference is some foreign materials can pay up to 22% duties, and a yacht pays 1.5% duty. So there's a major difference. Additionally, there's no sales tax in a foreign trade zone. So until you nationalize the boat, if you're going to nationalize the boat, you don't pay any sales taxes. If the boat is then going to be a foreign yacht with a foreign flag, upon export, meaning upon arrival to a foreign port, you never paid any duties or taxes. So now that's not 1.5% anymore. Now it's 7% plus 1.5% or 6.5 plus 1. So the numbers become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we started looking at, can we paint a boat? And marine paint is very expensive. If the marine paint is foreign, you can paint the boat with foreign marine paint, and it's no longer paint. It's now a boat. And if the boat is exported, it never paid any duty. So now you start to add other nuances. Can I bring in, from a cruising license, can I make my boat go into a foreign trade zone and then sell it? And the answer is yes. And all of these, we've been spending a lot of time with customs, and all of these questions come to customs, and we work through the regulations, and most of the time we're getting a yes. Can I buy fuel? Can I go and buy bonded fuel? The difference in between bonded and non-bonded fuel is about 30 cents a gallon. So can I, if I'm leaving with my yacht and I'm on a cruising license, I'm a foreign yacht, can I buy fuel? And the answer is yes, at a foreign trade zone you can buy fuel. So we've created this environment. We're still peeling the onion. We're still finding things that we can and can't do. But it's going to start to really propagate around the community. Bahia Mar is an active foreign trade zone marina. Pier 66 was just approved yesterday as an active foreign trade zone marina. Lauderdale Marine was the first one, and Lauderdale Marine is approved as a marina and also as a refit yard. Directors is coming online. I think as today is the last day for comments, so tomorrow, hopefully, we'll get approval to proceed with directors. National Marine is already on board, and there are various others that are in the process of becoming a foreign trade zone. The Marine Industry Association has opened up a second round for those facilities that want to be part of the foreign trade zone second round, and then thereby be part of this whole conglomerate of marinas and marine businesses that operate within a foreign trade zone. And the only purpose is to grow the industry and create more jobs within our industry, within our community, that bring us that excellence in the marine industry. So I understood this meeting would be more important. It would be more important to provide for questions, because we've been talking to different folks and we just get tons of questions. Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do the other? One of the things that you can do and you can't do, because we've already discovered it from the last IYBA meeting we went to, is you can do drawback. You can get your duties back for an unused or same condition boat. Meaning if you are a new build, you pay duties, you put it into a foreign trade zone, and get your duties back. However, if it's a used boat or if it's a resale of an already existing boat, you can't get your duties back in a foreign trade zone because it's no longer in the same condition as now used, and therefore might have been enhanced or might have been degraded in values. But there's so many things you can do that I'd rather answer questions than try to enumerate the possibilities. So I'm here for questions. They're right behind you.
Anywhere out of Broward County? Sorry. Anywhere out of Broward County, Miami-Dade?
You can have a foreign trade zone pretty much everywhere. But what we've done is Interport invested in creating, there's two phases to a foreign trade zone. You have to get permission from the Foreign Trade Zone Board, which is a federal agency, for a land designation or the riparian designation. Once you have that designation, then you apply to customs and get authority to operate. The MIASF and Interport invested in getting the FTZB, the Foreign Trade Zone Board designation, for all of the marinas that we've mentioned and more. So they won't have that cost. The only cost is activating with customs. If you're going to be in Miami-Dade County and you want to have, I've done 77 applications in Miami-Dade County of the different types of foreign trade zone businesses. You're going to have to bear the full cost of applying and paying the annual fee. In this case, the Marine Industry Association pays the annual fee for all of the marinas. So it's more of a collective subzone type of situation, but you can be a foreign trade zone anywhere you want to be a foreign trade zone.
Did I understand you to say that if I bring a boat that's registered in a foreign country and tie it up at Pier 66, and Pier 66 is a foreign trade zone, that I can offer it for sale and not have to pay duty?
Correct. But you have to first enter it into a foreign trade zone. There's some slight documentation function, but yeah, you enter it into foreign trade zone, your boat goes from being a privately held yacht into merchandise. You're converting it to merchandise. You can sell it right then and there.
So if I'm
And leave it there. You can sell it and leave it there. You don't have to move it.
So if I'm going to bring a boat into Flibs, I'd rather have it tied up at Pier 66 than the Las Olas docks.
Correct. I mean, I'm not doing a commercial for Pier 66 or anything like that, but you have to go into an activated slip, and it takes about 48 hours to activate that slip. Pier 66 just activated 3, because there's 3 yachts coming next week, and they don't want to pay duty, so they want to put them into Pier 66. And that's a deal in between you and Pier 66. But there's some documentation work, minor. We admit it into the zone and it becomes merchandise.
Hi, Tony Beveridge, Bremer. What about access to the vessel for nationals? Is it like a bonded warehouse? Do you need special ID or special protocols to get to and from the yacht?
No, it's actually a very good question, because when we first started this process, there's another gentleman here afterward. When we first started this process, we explained to customs that there was crew on board that had to maintain, especially the much larger vessels. You're talking about 10, 12 crew members maintaining the boat, or if you're doing a refit, you need people to access the boat on a regular basis. And after much negotiation, customs, the foreign trades on board and customs determined that whoever needs to be on board a yacht, whether it be at a dry dock or on a marina in a foreign trade zone, can be there if they have a specific purpose. If they're maintaining the yacht, they can live there and they can be there. They can't cruise and they can't take passengers for cruising purposes, but if they need to be there, they can be there. If they need to go see their yacht, if they're part of the ownership group or the management group and they need to go see the yacht, they have access to the yacht, they can go see it. It's not a real problem. Most of these marinas and foreign trade zones have access control anyway. You can't just walk up to a yacht. And the requirements in a foreign trade zone is that you know who's in the foreign trade zone. So that registration process pretty much takes care of the knowing who.
What limitations do you have in performing a sea trial and for the purpose of selling the vessel while it's in a foreign trade zone?
So you're going to, as we go along and start popularize this, you're going to hear CF-214, CF-216, a lot of different numbers and names to forms. Under customs regulations, a customs form 216 is a manipulation permit. And within a foreign trade zone, you're allowed to manipulate the asset, rebuild the asset, do all kinds of things to the asset. You can actually remove the asset from the foreign trade zone for up to 120 days for stated purposes. So if you're in Pier 66, for instance, and you want to do a sea trial, we file a 216 manipulation permit with customs. It takes about 48 hours, which spells out we're going to do sea trials, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. As long as you come back within 120 days, you're still a bonded vehicle, a bonded ship. You can go from Pier 66 to the Miami Beach Boat Show, the yacht show, and show the yacht and bring it back, and you're still bonded. By the way, you can show the yacht at any marina as long as it's bonded, as long as it's on a 216 or in a foreign trade zone. You can show and offer the yacht for sale during, after the show, at any time. And that's a big difference in between a show bond and the foreign trade zone, is you can actually show the yacht for sale at any time. And you can conclude a sale somewhere here and leave it there. And the only time that taxes or duties can be triggered is when the new owner wants to put a foreign flag on it, has to go to a foreign port, like Bimini, or if they want to pay duties, they go ahead and domesticate, pay duties, and they're done with it.
All the way in the back of the room.
How are the lines drawn as to what state law is applicable in a foreign trade zone? For example, I assume that the laws of murder would apply, but where does the sales tax exemption come in?
It's not in the commerce of the United States, so it's not within the commerce of Florida either. Well, as long as you're doing it in the foreign trade zone, there's no commerce occurred in the United States. So commerce laws don't apply as long as you're in the foreign trade zone.
Is there
Yes.
some particular federal or state statute that indicates, demarks what laws do apply and what laws don't?
In general commerce and in all foreign trade zones, not just in the marine industry, I used to own part of the ownership of the Miami Free Zone, and we had gaming machines being repaired at the Miami Free Zone. State law prohibited that right outside the fence, but inside the fence, it had no jurisdiction. So we were able to fix gaming machines at the Miami Free Zone with the state of Florida objecting, but they couldn't do anything about it because it's not inside the commerce of the United States. It's as if you did a transaction in the high seas. The state of Florida has no jurisdiction. The only jurisdiction that state and federal agencies, or local state and federal agencies, have are with safety and also with, murder and those kind of things are not allowed in foreign trade zones either.
Why don't you say your question and then have Gary repeat it?
If I take goods from the U.S., put them on the vessel in the foreign trade zone, am I liable for duties?
You're asking all the good questions, by the way. His question was if he takes merchandise and puts it on a foreign trade zone yacht, is he liable for duties? So let's talk about that a little bit because that's a complex question. We are now applying for the MIASF to have production authority, meaning that you can actually take merchandise, convert it into part of the ship, and it becomes part of the ship or the yacht or the boat. But you can also take merchandise, consumables. You can take furniture, you can take things that you're going to carry, additional spares you're going to carry on the yacht, and we deliver them from a bonded facility or from the airport or from the port onto the yacht in a bonded stage, and when the yacht leaves, that product is bonded and remains with the yacht and it becomes part of the yacht without necessarily having to install it. So in the case, there's a situation now where there's a yacht that's coming for refit, and at the end, when it's being turned over back to the owners, the owner wants to put their furniture and artwork in the yacht, and then they're leaving, which is perfectly allowable, and it's all duty-free, tax-free.
What about goods that are already duty paid in the United States and you can put them in duty-free zone on your vessel?
It's an export. Yeah. So we are talking about U.S. goods or duty-paid goods already in the United States that you're going to put onto your vessel.
Yes.
If your vessel is in a foreign trade zone, delivery to the vessel is an export. And you get a document for that. So if you're going to be liable for state taxes, you have proof of export, which gives you release from those state taxes. Whatever you deliver to the boat, whether domestic or foreign, has to be documented if you're in a foreign vessel, because we're delivering it to a foreign trade zone.
That's an export?
That's an export. Delivery to a foreign trade zone constitutes an export.
Under these regulations, is a U.S. national allowed to purchase the yacht?
A U.S. national is allowed to purchase a yacht.
Like you see in the brokerage ads and things, not for sale in U.S. waters to U.S. citizens or
You can
whatever.
show it to a U.S. national, you can sell it to a U.S. national. And when it leaves the zone, at some point in time it leaves the zone, when it leaves the zone, you have to determine whether you're going to flag it foreign or you're going to flag it domestic. But you can show it to a U.S. national, which is an issue, especially with the show bond. You can't, after the show is over, you can't show it to U.S. national. In a foreign trade zone, you can. And that was the first reason why we wanted to make a foreign trade zone. And then all these other much more interesting situations have come up, and that's kind of taken a back seat, but that was the principal reason, to be able to show it, not during the show. Somebody was asking a question. And then you have another question over here at some point in time.
I just want to point out, it's not citizenship, and it's not nationality, it's residency.
You have another question here.
From here? Jay?
Raise your hand, please.
I just wanted to clarify where we are in the regulatory stage with this. Are the Is the Code of Federal Regulations now available for other attorneys in the room to review this so that we could get comfortable advising clients about it? Because obviously this is something that'll make a big difference to us.
In the Coast Guard?
In the Code of Federal Regulations regarding customs.
This is a new process. This is the first customs district that does it, but it's been approved all the way through headquarters. And we have a procedures document from U.S. Customs. And this is official. It's an official approval by U.S. Customs.
Okay, that's something that we can look at.
We can share it, but the U.S. Customs in Fort Lauderdale can share it. When we started the process, a lot of the other customs port directors throughout the country started paying attention to this because they'd like it for their community as well. So we were the test case. We've written the new regulations, and now everybody else is adopting the regulations we wrote.
Okay, just quick follow-up, and this may well be in the code, but it would be useful for everybody here to know. To be clear, the asset or the yacht or the goods that are being dealt with have to be physically within this particular geographical area, or does the deal have to go down within that geographical area?
The asset for you to generate a zone admission, a 214, the asset has to be in the zone.
Okay.
So when the asset arrives, and afterwards it doesn't, but initially when you generate the zone admission, you have to physically admit it into the zone.
Okay, so it's sort of an analogy to putting into a customs warehouse, more or less.
No, that doesn't. Yeah, it has to actually go physically into Pier 66 by EMR, one of those locations. You have two questions, one over there, one over here. And then you have one back there also.
My question is regarding actually closing the sale, because I remember last week at the Marine Industries Association event, the customs officer was pretty clear saying that the yacht can be in the zone when you close the sale, but you can't actually physically close the sale in the zone.
Right, so what they were getting at, and I actually looked at him, and then he changed his tune a little bit. You can transact business with merchandise in the zone, you can transfer titles within the zone. So I can sell you something in a zone, as long as it remains in the zone, I've just changed ownership. The transaction, the physical transaction has to be done in an office outside of the border of the zone. So you can do it next door. You can do it in the offices. The asset doesn't get a change in the termination until you move the asset. So the asset can stay there. You change title. In our industry in Miami, we run a pretty substantial foreign trade zone in Miami, and a lot of what we trade in is liquor, and liquor changes hands multiple times before it actually is consumed, and it's almost as an asset as a capital exchange, and you basically just keep on changing the owner of the asset, and the asset never moves. But the transaction isn't done inside the warehouse of the foreign trade zone. The transaction is done in an office somewhere, and it's a foreign transaction.
Any other questions? Right here.
And then there's a lady back there, though.
Hi. Are there any special endorsements needed from insurance companies, or have you found any hurdles with insurance and insuring the boat as a private yacht in a free trade zone?
Well, it stops being a private yacht. It
Sorry?
becomes merchandise. It stops being a private yacht. It becomes merchandise. I don't know of any endorsements required because it's ownership. You own it. You still own it. But it's become merchandise. It's no longer used as a yacht while it's in the foreign trade zone. But we've heard of no endorsements, and we've had no pushback. A lot of what we learn is we challenge something that hasn't been done before, and then we find a determination. It's a hell of a way to make regulations, but if nobody's ever done it, it's the only way to do it.
I'm sorry, I guess I was wondering how that works with the protocol of delivery, because in order to prove that import duty has been paid, you also have to accompany it with the protocol of delivery to show where the transfer or the closing happened. And if the closing or the transaction's happening not on the vessel, which is in the foreign trade zone, doesn't that conflict with the proof of the import duty?
No.
No,
because the asset's in a foreign trade zone. You're transferring title in an office through a legal transaction of a foreign trade zone item remaining in the foreign trade zone. You haven't changed the status of the item. But you've transferred that Rolls Royce. There's no imports. It's not an import yet. When I understand where you're going. When merchandise comes into a foreign trade zone, it's still in a foreign status. It hasn't yet been imported or admitted into the United States. So there is no transfer of the rights to import because you're just changing ownership, you're changing foreign ownership in an office. There's somebody behind you.
Yeah, could you speak to how you acquire the bond? Because presumably, if you're bringing the vessel into the free trade zone, it has to be under bond. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so is BMR and Pier 66, are they providing bond services, or do you have to find your own bond broker?
No, you don't have to find your own bond broker.
Right.
And Jay will attest the same thing. I'll explain to you.
And that bond is solely for the purposes of that asset remaining inside the free trade zone and not being brought into the commerce of the United States?
Not necessary. Each facility, to be able to operate as a foreign trade zone, files a bond, a facilities bond, with U.S. Customs. So Pier 66, BahiaMar, Lauderdale Marine, all of these have already filed very large bonds for the duty exposure of these yachts. A depositor can deposit goods into a foreign trade zone. Unlike a bonded warehouse, you don't have to have a bond accompanying your cargo. You can deposit at Interport, for instance, in our warehouse. Since we have custody over the warehouse, you don't need an additional bond. You just deposit under our bond because we are the zone operator. Same thing happens in the marine industry. However, these assets float and have their own power. So there's a certain amount of exposure and risk to the marina operators. And we've set up with Pier 66, with BahiaMar, and with Lauderdale Marine, and now we'll continue with others, a methodology to create a subrogating bond. So a bond covering their bond for that potential exposure should the owner decide to crank up and leave, and then leaves the duties unpaid. And the bond will be the amount of the duty, and then we can generate them on an ongoing basis because it's the same surety that originally wrote their facilities bond. So there's basically double coverage on the same risk, but just for the exposure to the duty. So a $10 million yacht will pay 1.5% duty, so you need a $150,000 bond. Cost about $12 a thousand.
Gary, a couple of people have asked for your website address. Could you repeat that for them, please?
I'm sorry?
Your web address?
It's www.interport.us. And the other day I was in a conference similar to this, and I do have an accent, and some person thought I said intercourse. No, it's Interport. I turned red like I most probably did now, but it's Interport. And yet we're a regional, very, very large regional third-party logistics operation, very involved in the cruise ship industry. So we understand what you deal with. We understand supplying of the ships and all of that. And it was very easy for us to get involved. We do the same thing in Holland, by the way. What we do here, we do the same thing in the Netherlands with the cruise industry.
I think that's it, right?
Any other questions?
That's fantastic. Great information.
Thank you
Gary.
very much.
Right on.